All right, thank you everybody for coming. Sorry for being just a few minutes late. Just like anybody, we've got to get our training done too, so we had to get that taken care of downstairs. Let's go ahead and start the Planning Commission meeting for tonight, January 21st, 2020. We're going to go ahead and start by completing our group here by giving the oath of office to our newest Planning Commission. And then if you want to step on down, we'll go ahead and get that taken care of. Did you want another minute? Yeah. Sure. You're the mayor. You can do whatever you want. I'm not going to tell you no.
Well, pretty soon I'd like to take you all to Custard's Frozen Nelson. Sorry.
I don't know. That might be a violation. We might be a quorum if we do that.
I should say it properly. But anyway, I want to provide an official welcome for our newest commissioner, Ammon Allen. He is technically the first commissioner that I have got to appoint as the mayor, so thank you for helping me get off on the right foot. And as last time, as I said 2 weeks ago, I want to extend my thank you to each of the commissioners for serving on this capacity. You make the work for the city a lot smoother and better, and you are a great benefit to the city council, having served on the city council for 4 years, and you doing all the background work and research. And we just read up on all your information afterwards. You are a benefit to us. So thank you for your service and keep up the good work. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, moving along. Our next business item is the discussion regarding the minutes from our previous meeting. Any conversation or a motion? Commissioner England.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Thomas.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Commissioner England, seconded by Commissioner Thomas. Any discussion to the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Awesome, unanimous on that one. Next item up is the Planet Fitness sales trailer. This is going in over at Jordan Landing. We'll just let Mr. Forsyth take over on this one. You're up, sir.
All right, thank you, Chairman. So this is a this is a trailer that's going in on the southwest corner of the parking lot over in the old Sears building in Jordan Landing. So the trailer will take up about several parking stalls, but it'll be situated in a way that it's not interfering with the drive aisles or anything like that. So we're really not anticipating a whole lot of parking needs. Parking has well over 1,000 spaces and has more than enough parking that it needs. And then the use will primarily be for sales of gym memberships. So should be pretty simple as far as impact. There's not going to be any noise or dust or any other physical impacts like that. So.
Excellent. Any questions for staff? Okay. Any discussion here, guys? We had a couple of questions downstairs. Do we want to visit those again, or are we okay? Awesome. Anybody want to make a motion on that? Commissioner Hatch.
I would actually just like to mention that we had talked about having it be 150 days or as soon as the facility is open, so they don't have to come back.
Whichever comes first.
Whichever comes first.
Any issues with that as a condition? Commissioner England.
I'll make a motion with that in mind. Based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission approve the temporary use permit for the Planet Fitness sales trailer located at 7453 South Plaza Center Drive at an SC3 ZC zone with the conditions of approval listed on page 2 of this report, with the addition of a 9th condition of approval to include the language of 150 days or upon completion of the permanent building,
Whichever comes first.
whichever comes first.
Commissioner Hatch.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner England, seconded by Commissioner Hatch. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. Moving right along. Our last business item, this is a revisit of the Barber property. Mr. Page, you want to give us the quick and dirty on this one?
Thank you, Chair. The Planning Commission has previously considered this basic item or items in 2 public hearings. Likewise, the City Council has also considered this proposed change to the general land use plan map and a rezone in 2 public hearings. So after the last public hearing before the City Council asked that the Planning Commission could weigh in on the latest recommendation. Right there. Oh, sorry, the next one. So this is the latest rezone request and concept plan. Again, we're not considering necessarily the concept plan, but just the change to the future land use map and the rezone at this time. So earlier, the applicant requested a residential estates or 20,000 square foot minimum. They're on the east side of this property. Now they're requesting a rural residential, 20,000 square foot minimum. The only real difference between the RE or rural estates and the rural residential RR is with the RR you have animal rights that are associated with the property based on the acreage of the land. So,
Any questions for staff? Go ahead and hit your button there. Commissioner Shelton.
Can you clarify what animals would be allowed up this property in this zoning type?
it depends on the size of the animal. I believe it's like 17 points. We could verify that with the code here.
In a rural residential zone, large animals, medium-sized animals, and small, so everything from horse, cow, sheep, goat, pigs, chickens, rabbits, just the typical farm animals, but the rural residential zone does allow the large animals. And as Kent said, it's based on lot size, by number of points you get, you can have so many animals, so they couldn't on a.
That was gonna be my next question,
Yeah.
the number of animals.
Yeah, they couldn't put 15 horses on that lot, so probably 2 at the most, maybe 3, I don't know.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Hatch.
And the property that's, I don't even know, east of this, is that rural residential as well? That's not included in what we're talking about?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
It's zoned 40,000, or it's 1 acre lots, not half acre.
Any other questions? Okay. We'll have a discussion here, just to make sure everybody knows that those who are visiting, we've heard this, City Council's heard this has not been noticed as a public hearing, so we will not be taking any public comment on this tonight, just a discussion between the Planning Commission. Commissioner Hatch.
I'll make a motion, or actually 2 motions. Based on the information and findings set forth in this staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to amend the general plan future land use map for 10.2 acres from very low density residential to low density residential on a property located at 7401 South, 5490 West.
Commissioner Badon.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hatch, seconded by Commissioner Badon. Just a clarification on that motion, 10.02, not 10.2. on the acreage, just to make sure we have what's in the packet there. Any other discussion to the motion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-1. You wanna take the second one?
I'll take the second one. Based on the information and findings set forth in this staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to rezone 10.02 acres from RR1D Rural Residential 40,000 square foot minimum lot area to R112F Residential Single Family 12,000 square foot minimum lot area F-size home and Rural Residential 20,000 square foot rural residential single family minimum lot area F-size home at 7401 South, 5490 West.
Second.
I think you deserve an applause for that. We have a motion by Commissioner Hatch, seconded again by Commissioner Badon. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-1. All right, moving on into our public hearings for the evening. First up, we have Kazir Excavating Office at 5548 West Bagley Park Road with a preliminary site planning conditional use permits for 1, auto operations and fleet vehicle maintenance facilities, 2, fuel, oil, and heating oil distribution and storage facilities in the drinking water source protection overlay zone, and 3, outside storage and operations in an M1 zone. Bertoldi Architects, Ray Bertoldi, I assume that's you at the
Nope, I'm
podium?
Scott Benson, I'm with Kazir Excavating.
All right, Scott.
So
Could you just
architect
give us
couldn't make it tonight, so.
give us your address just so that we can get it in the record, and then the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, the address we're talking about is 5548 West Bagley Park Road. It was subdivided off as a minor subdivision probably about a year ago. We purchased the property and we're looking to move our operations from Draper to this address. We're gonna build an office, about 8 offices, conference room, stuff like that, not too serious, and then we'll have a 3-bay shop to do our maintenance in. So, carry about 50 employees, and I don't think we'll be much of a burden, so.
Okay, Commissioner Badon.
No, sorry.
Oh, we had a couple of questions downstairs. Anybody want to revisit those questions? Commissioner England.
Just about how many trucks would you have on site at any given time?
Every day, most of our dump trucks come in every day, and we only run in, I'm gonna say 9 of them right now. So they'll leave once in the morning, come back in the afternoon, that's about it. Most of our employees go straight to the job, so it's gonna be primarily office staff that are in and out of that.
Excellent. Any other questions for the applicant? Commissioner Shelton.
Is this, sorry, I wasn't prepared for the question, but I didn't want to lose my chance to ask about fuel being stored on this property.
We'll have
Tell us
roughly about
that.
12,000 gallons, will be above ground storage tanks. They're a dual containment system. We have them now, actually. When we're relocating them to there, we'll have 3 pumps off of it. Diesel, dyed diesel, and regular fuel.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioner Allen.
You mentioned about 50 employees, a conference room on this site. Do you ever find that you have employee-wide meetings?
Yes, we
that
do.
That would occur here?
Yeah.
Do you have sufficient parking for that?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think we got plenty of that.
Okay, any other questions? All right, we will save you some time to respond to the public if we need to after the public hearing.
Okay.
All right, who's up on this one? I forget. I think Lisa, you're up, right? Lost my place in the packet here. In the microphone. She's too quiet.
Is that better?
There you go.
Again, I'd just like to remind you that we are only seeing the conditional use permit part of this application tonight. It is for, the first part of the application is for their fleet fleet maintenance and repair. All of that will be taking place inside of their shop building, other than the truck wash area. And that will be, the water runoff and all of that is, you can direct your questions to Nate about that. But it's all, I believe, has to be disposed of in the sewer, right? From the truck wash, yes, rather than going into the storm drain. The second component is the fuel storage, which it is, like Mr. Benson explained, it's a dual contained tank. They just submitted the specs to us last week, so not a whole lot was in your staff report about it. As long as they go with those tanks, then they don't need any exterior containment. And of course, that would be questions to the fire marshal about that. The third component that we're looking at is the outside storage and operations. And currently they meet, if you want to go to the site plan, can you click? Oh, Kent said it wasn't working, okay. Along the east and the north side, they've got an 8-foot precast concrete wall that's gonna go along there. And along the west side, they've got chain link fence with slats. As they're next door to another M1, that's all they need. Currently, one of your conditions of approval that you're going to consider is the wall and the fence that runs from the front of the back building all the way to the subdivision wall. They have not submitted elevations of the wall part of that, and the elevation that they did submit for the gate is an open metal gate, so they'll have to resubmit elevations for that meet the code. Other than that, they are in compliance with all of our other codes, so we recommend that you approve their conditional use permit.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Oops, wrong button. Okay. This is our first public hearing, so we'll go ahead and open up this item to the public if anybody would like to come forward. Just please give us your name and your address, and you've got 3 minutes to share your thoughts. Please come on forward now. We're not here for this one, okay? All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing for this item and bring this back to the Planning Commission. Any discussion regarding this conditional use permit, guys? Commissioner England.
Well, I'll just go ahead and make the motion. I move that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit for Casier Excavating Office located at 5548 West Bagley Park Road in the M1 Light Manufacturing Zone District, subject to conditions 1 through 7.
Commissioner Hatch.
I'll second.
Excellent. We have a motion from Commissioner England, seconded by Commissioner Hatch. Any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Awesome. You're all set. We are unanimous on this. Thank you for wanting to come to do business in West Jordan. We appreciate you. Moving right along. Next item up is the Oak Ridge Park Phase 5, 8200 South, 6700 West, future land use map amendment for approximately 9.09 acres from public facilities to medium density residential Ivory Development. Skylar Tolbert, the floor is yours, sir. Or your representative, whoever's here on behalf of the application.
Thank you. Skylar Tolbert with Ivory Development. I've gone through the staff report and I don't have a whole lot to add. It's pretty simple, but I wanted to give a little context to the application. When we purchased this property, we purchased it from the Boyer Company. And at that time, they had purchased the entire site, all of Oak Ridge, which was approved for 144 units at that time. The school decided to hold out this 9-acre parcel because they had a need for the school, but didn't have the right location they were looking for, but couldn't give up this 9 acres. At that time, it was talked about with the Boyer Company and the school district of a trade, but obviously the Boyer Company didn't have anything. As we've acquired another piece of land on the other side of Bacchus Highway, the school found out about it and approached us and wanted to trade this 9-acre parcel for a parcel on the other side of the highway. In doing so, we've entered into a trade agreement with them. We're able to accommodate them in a better way where they want to be situated as well as give them a little more property. They'd like to have 10 acres instead of 9 acres. So we've agreed to trade them this parcel for the parcel that they would like. Just a few little comments on this phase, which we're calling Oak Ridge Phase 5. The average lot size is 9,000 square feet, 9,948 square feet. In phases 1 through 4, which is what we've already developed and built, the average home, or the average lot size is 9,000 square feet. So on average, we're about 1,000 square feet bigger, even though the zone is the same. I did receive a call from a concerned neighbor when he got the notice, and asked me what medium density residential meant, because he Googled it and it meant apartments or townhomes. So I clarified that with him, that it was the exact zoning that he had and where he lived. It's the same zoning that is within our current subdivision, Oak Ridge Park, and that's what we're moving forward with. So he was, he calmed down pretty quickly and didn't have any issues with that. Happy to answer any other specific questions now or after the public hearing.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Hatch?
No question, but I would just like to disclose that I'm an employee of Ivory Employment Leasing, work for the Ivory Foundation, so I'm affiliated but not compensated.
Thank you. Anything else? Commissioner Shelton?
I'd just like to disclose that I have a family member that lives nearby there, and that they've expressed some of their views to me about the project.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else, guys? Commissioner Allen?
So, more of a thought. I know this is more of the future land use, not the actual subdivision that we're looking at. But with the plan that was put together, at least for our packet, it shows access to the west, going to 8100 South between two existing lots. You have everything in place in order to make that happen if that's moves forward?
We do. This has been contemplated for a long time. So when we released that subdivision, we actually held out the appropriate lots that we would need. So we will amend that, but we currently own the lots that we will need to access that property.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, guys? We'll save you some time after the public hearing.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Page, you're the last man standing or sitting, so you're up.
Chair, what's before us tonight is just considering the future land use map amendment to change the future land use of this approximately 9.09 acres from public facilities to medium density residential. As been talked about, the school district and Ivory Homes have been working together to trade us a site, maybe from this area to another site to the west, farther west. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer those.
Any questions for staff? Okay, I think we're good here. All right, this is also a public hearing, so we'll go ahead and open up the podium for those who want to come forward and speak on this item. Time is yours.
Hi, my name is Camille Barlow. I live at 6731 Oak Ridge Park Drive, adjacent to, I guess over here, the new subdivision. I've talked with many of my neighbors. None of them are particularly happy about this, as we were told when we moved in that there would be a school back there, and that's kind of why we chose the lots that we chose. But now that Ivory owns it, a couple of questions about, first, the water detention area, how that's going to be expanded to include the new homes. As of right now, it tends to fill up, at least the whole bottom tends to fill up anytime there's a rainstorm. And how Ivory plans on addressing that with additional homes. As well as the canal that goes back there. There's a fairly large canal. We were wondering how they plan to manage that, if they're going to put pipes in, or if they're going to leave it open. that kind of thing.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
Just for our information, is that spot right there, that the detention pond you're talking about?
Yes,
Okay.
and I live directly next to that.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing no one else, we'll go ahead and close this public hearing and bring this back to the planning commission. I got one quick question while we're waiting for people to think. I noticed in our packet, if you go back, I think a couple of slides that I was on here, you showed the, yeah, right there. Right, where's my button at? Now I'll set up my work right there. Is that gonna be, I mean, parks and public land, what are we doing with that? Is that going to be another detention pond? I mean, there's not much else you can do with that. Is it a trail? Okay.
And it will remain a trail.
Commissioner Hatch.
I would just like clarification from Larry on how the school works with their property purchasing, what power we have as a planning commission on where the school wants to put a school, or where the school district wants to put a school. I'd like that understood.
Well, the school district purchased this property, I believe, in the 1950s, and it was a 50-acre piece of property. And lots of times, they were way ahead of the game. You know, they purchased property for decades in advance, just assuming what the development patterns would be. This one, unfortunately, they've, you know, with the 40 acres, they chose to sell that off because they determined that 50-acre site didn't meet their needs as a high school, because now they require 65 acres or something. That's their minimum size for high schools, and they didn't necessarily want a high school that far north, because we already have, you know, Copper Hills, which is full at this time, but the school district is trying to channel more students to West Jordan High. That's neither here nor there, but so they left the 10-acre or 9-acre parcel on the chance that they may build an elementary school. And ever since this property was sold off, they've been looking for alternative sites to build an elementary school. You know, they went farther north, up to the Harper Pit site, but they determined that didn't meet their needs. And so they really wanted something on the west side of Bacchus Highway, because there will be a lot of growth eventually on that side of the highway. And so that's, rather than having kids cross that busy highway, they'd rather have it in the community that's there. And so what can the planning commission do about siting the school? Absolutely nothing. The legislature's taken that power completely away from you. Now, you can approve on the land use map where you think they should be, but it's totally the school district's decision on where they put their schools or what property they buy for that, so.
Nate, can you talk to us a little bit about that detention pond that she was referencing? Is it, will it be sufficient to handle these extra houses?
I think Skylar could answer it better, but what I assume and what I understand is that they'll be increasing the size of the pond slightly into this project to provide the detention. So it's not something that they'll just add to. This project has to contain its own detention.
Increasing size. Any other questions, discussion, Garrikas?
Yeah, I'd like to bring Skylar back up just to hear his response to the
All right, you
detention
want
pond.
to make the motion?
Just, do we need a motion on that?
No, go ahead. Come on up, Skylar. You're right.
Sure, maybe, Larry, could you forward this and I'll talk about the detention area? One more. So maybe go one more.
I'm gonna turn the light off again so we can see that.
Oh, back one, sorry.
Well, that's not what we
All
want.
right, so in the upper right corner, it's hard to see, but that's labeled, I think it's parcel B. It's kind of a yep, right there. It's kind of a triangular area. That's attached to the current basin, so it will be extended and accommodate for the runoff of these lots here. So the basin will grow in size.
Does that run all the way down like that?
No, it won't. That's just where that trail goes, actually.
Is that all as part of the trail?
Yeah, so, and maybe let me talk about that real quick because that was brought up. So right now, it's along 8200 South. As we've been talking with staff, and it's not we haven't decided yet, but they would like to bring that trail inside of our subdivision and through kind of the long rectangular strip, parcel B, right in the middle, to get the pedestrians off of 8200 South and off of 6700 West. So we're happy to accommodate that if that's something that staff would like to move forward. If not, it'll stay on 8200 South. But if we do that, we can bring them through the subdivision, get them off. They cross the street and go into the Peterson development to the east there. And then lastly, the canal, we need to keep it open similarly to how we did between phases 3 and 4, which is what you see, why we have that long narrow strip as well. So it will be kept open, maintained just like it is throughout the other subdivision. It will get piped under the road, and then it gets piped under 6700 West and then continues open there.
Okay. Any other questions, guys? Thank you.
Oh, one thing too, this is for the amendment to the general plan, just as a clarification item, the rezone will follow this. So we'll be behind this on the rezone and the preliminary planning.
Yep. Thank you. Commissioner England.
I'll make a motion on this one. Based on the information, unless anybody's got anything else. Jay?
Did you have something?
Did you have
No, I
something?
just was gonna make a motion, so.
Let's let Commissioner Thomas run with this one.
Oh, all right.
We've heard enough from Commissioner England tonight.
Yes, we have.
Okay, based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report and upon evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to amend the future land use map on 9.09 acres property located at 8200 South, 6700 West from a public facilities to medium density residential.
Commissioner England.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Thomas, seconded by Commissioner England. Any discussion to the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are unanimous on this one. Thank you. All right. I'm assuming this is what everybody else is here for, since nobody cares about text amendments but us. So next item up is Nielsen's Custard in the Highlands Center at 67652 South Highlands Loop Road, general plan land use map amendment for approximately 1.5 acres from high density residential to community commercial and rezoning from HFR, which is high density multifamily residential, and a WSPA to SC2 community shopping center zone. Peterson Development, Barrett Peterson is the applicant. Whoever's here to represent Peterson, come on forward.
My name is Ryan Peterson. Barrett's my brother, but I'm here for this tonight. I'm here to answer any questions with this. We're just looking to rezone, extend a little bit the commercial development there at the Highland Shopping Center, a little bit north across the street, one small parcel there next to the city-owned detention pond. And it's 1.5 acres. Any questions I can answer for the commission?
Any questions? All right, thank you. That was quick and easy.
The Nielsen's Custard family's here to answer any questions if needs be. And I'm here too, if you have anything for me. Thank you.
So it's Nielsen's Custard, not Custard Family Nielsen, or whatever. Just kidding. That's right.
Dangerous.
Yeah. I'm in my last year. What is he gonna do to me? Mr. Page, this one you? Or is this Larry? Oh, it's Larry. They actually have you doing something over here.
So the slide on the left is the current land use map, and as you can see, let's see if I can get this to come up. This area is all high-density residential. It's part of the Highlands Master Plan. And so Peterson's been working on some type of development type for that area, but nothing within application form at this time. This is a city-owned detention pond slash park. It's been developed as a park, and so the Nelsons, from what I have heard in discussions from the applicant, they've had some models of their custard shop, particularly in South Jordan, that's right next to a community park and near residential. And so you can see this is a little bit off the 5600 West, but that's their preferred location because they like to be close to neighborhoods. And probably the Nielsen family could answer why they particularly like that better than me. But so the application before you is to rezone the parcel in red at that location. The slide on the left shows.
Sorry, Larry, can you go back really quick?
Yes, sir.
What's the plan with the open land and park that's right there? Is that
That's
a trail that's gonna be walked?
No, that's a wash that is currently mostly non-existent. It's a drain. It's not a wash on our master plan in any way in that location, but there's actually pipes there that go into the detention pond. And so it will be probably filled in and piped at that location. Well, it'll have to be. And then from what I've heard from our CIP, they do plan on putting playground equipment in that park. And so it'll function more as a community park location than it has been, because it is rather a bowl-shaped detention pond. And so this is just the site plan. You can see the aerials, what's surrounding the Summer Glen subdivision is the closest residential use at this time. And from the Nelson's Custard Shop, the closest home would be a little over 400 feet. And you can see this is in back of the Smiths, and then to the rear of the Smiths, and then that whole shopping center on 56 and 78 South. And then to your right is a site plan for what they on how they will lay out their stores. You can see there's an entrance, an exit off of Highlands Loop Road, and also one on the future street. And they do have a lot of vehicle storage with this plan, because if the Nelsons in South Jordan gets really backed up and actually goes into the parking lot and into the street in some cases. So this will have adequate vehicle storage. And so we don't anticipate that the drive-through traffic, we estimate most of that will go back out to the busier street of Highlands Loop Road onto 56 or 78. Now, could there be cars go through the subdivision? Of course, but I think it'd be quicker for anyone to go back out onto the collector road and onto the arterial. And so with that, and because it meets all the findings and criteria of the land use map amendment and zone change staff supports this application.
Thank you. Mr. Linkford, welcome.
Thank you. Just to add to what Larry indicated, just if we have people from the public to clarify the process, again, this is for land use map amendment and rezone. Details regarding the site plan will be brought back to the commission, assuming that the council approves the rezone and land use map amendment. The concept plan presented to you tonight is just a proof of concept. If the commission feels like it would be beneficial to the Nielsen family or the Peterson family, that you could provide comment to them, but just know that you'll have another opportunity to see the details of the site plan at a future date.
Thank you. What's the likelihood that other commercial applicants are going to follow suit and that we're going to continue parceling this out commercially instead of adding more houses to this area that's kind of already overburdened.
From discussions we've had, slim to none. Probably none.
So this is our
more
one
than
shot?
slim, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? All right, we will go ahead and open the public hearing on this. If anybody would like to speak on this item, the opportunity is yours to come forward now. Everybody likes custard? All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, bring this back to the planning commission. I, for one, am grateful that we've got something other than houses going here, even if it's just a small amount of space.
And tire shops.
Yeah, and more tire shops.
Who doesn't like custard?
Commissioner Hatch.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to say I'm really thrilled you're here. I'm from Bountiful originally, so I grew up walking distance from the original custard place and ate there far too often. I just have one issue. It's really far from my house. So, I mean, it would take me half an hour to drive there, and I really don't like that. But I'm really glad you're here. I really like the idea. Thank you.
Anybody else? Nobody? Go for it.
I'll make a motion.
Please do.
Two of them, it looks like. Based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to amend the future land use map on 1.5 acres of property located at 7652 South Highlands Loop Road from high-density residential to community commercial. I'll just make the second one as well. Is that okay, Chair? Can I do both in
Can
one?
we do them at the same time and then just vote on them individually? Mr. Murray, what do you think?
It's probably better that you vote on it and then move on to the next one.
Okay. Need a second then. Commissioner, who did that first? Thomas.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Hatch, seconded by Commissioner Thomas. Any discussion to the first motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Perfect, we are unanimous. Commissioner Hatch.
All right, based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to rezone 1.5 acres of property located at 7652 South Highland Loops Road from the HFR High Density Multifamily Residential, WSPA, to SC2 Community Shopping Center Zone.
Commissioner England.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Hatch, seconded by Commissioner England. Any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Excellent, we are unanimous again. Thank you for wanting to do business in West Jordan. We appreciate that.
Can I make one comment? I've had two daughters work for the Nelsons, and you couldn't ask for a finer outfit for a teenage daughter to work for. They're closed on Sundays. They do go to work. They have to work while they're there. But it's really a business that encourages teenagers to get a job and to work, and they'll work around their school schedules. And so, you know, I think it's a real positive to the community, and I love caramel cashew too, so.
I hope the mayor pays attention to this meeting so he can get your recommendation too. All right.
I want to know where the samples are.
It would have melted by now. All right, thank you. You can stick around for the last item if you want to. It's gonna be super thrilling. Or you can leave, either way. Thank you, guys. Last item we have on here, well, second to last item, is our text amendment for the West Foothill District to amend the 2009 City Code, you went too fast, adding Article K, West Foothill District to the Title 13, Chapter 6, citywide applicability. Mr. Gardner.
I believe Ivory Development, who is really the genesis of this ordinance, would like to address you first, if that's appropriate. So.
Sure.
Looks like they're drawing straws. or
Guys, let's just
something
get rock, paper, scissors over quickly. It's really easy.
And the loser has to come up and speak,
Yes.
actually. Chris Gambroulis, I'm president of Ivory Development. With me is Brian Prince, who's vice president. And we were really proud of Skylar tonight, too, so got a lot going on in your city. We've been working over the last several months with staff. Larry and Duncan have been terrific. They've put a lot of time and effort into this zone text. We've been going back and forth with red lines over the last several months. The purpose of the zone text, I'll let Brian get into the details and run through this, but wanted to just give you a little basis of this. And this property is 565 acres. So for perspective, it's about the size of the Wood property. It's big. There's a lot of ground here. This isn't like 20 acres. It's owned by the Jones family, the Lamar Jones family. So Lamar passed away about 2 years ago. Vicki Jones, his widow, and her children who reside in Pendleton, Oregon. It's been in their family since 1949. This is some of the last property that they have. For perspective, this is U-111 or Bacchus Highway. This is Old Bingham across the bottom. This is New Bingham that cuts diagonally through the property, which is one of the real challenges. Actually, one of the reasons we're here, because some of the site constraints that we have. There's the drainage that runs through the property here. This is our High Point community up here, and this is the 9-acre piece that you were looking at earlier. This is the junior high. The Amazon distribution center sits in that corner there. This is Boeing. So the Jones family, we've been working with them for quite some time, including purchasing the High Point project from them. They've owned all of this, and it's been in the master plan, in the land use area of your master plan as part industrial and part research park. That's the terminology in there. We're not quite certain how this is really going to develop out. I don't know that anyone is, candidly. I think if you had told anybody 10 years ago that at this corner there would be a 1.3 million square foot building there, we would say, well, that's kind of a crazy thing, right? 10 years ago, a large building was 300,000 square feet. And, this is almost more than 4 times that. So this zone text, what it is intending to do is to create some guidelines so that there's some predictability on our part as we're talking to manufacturers, office, commercial, so that we know that those land uses are already approved in that area. It helps us to be able to respond to letters of intent that we're receiving. We've already received 3 letters of intent for properties for part of the 565 acres. So there are users for this. Most of those are manufacturing and distribution right now. But what we would like to do is move this out of ag zoning and create a zone text that gives us flexibility to be able to respond to those what we think are going to be major employers, and also to be able to respond to the market when someone wants a 2 million square foot building or something, and it's something we haven't even heard of today. But we want to be able to do that. We also think that there are some uses that we want to be proactive in addressing from now, and that would be commercial retail and even like hospitality. If you go to the International Center, there's like 8 hotels in the International Center because people are coming in and out from those businesses that are there. And so having the ability to work with a hotel here, knowing that it's an approved land use, will give us the confidence to be able to do some site plans and work with those people to create those opportunities. So, Brian, I'm gonna let Brian run through the philosophical, that's the underlying foundation of it. The philosophical wanting to do the right thing here is baked into this zone text. And I'll let Brian go ahead and talk about that.
Excellent. Brian Prince with Ivory Development. Appreciate the time tonight. This is a really, really exciting project. And for a lot of reasons. First, it really fulfills the city's long-term plans, the general plan of this staying a commercial use and securing the scale for a large regional employment center. In addition to that, like Chris said, the intent of the zone is to provide the flexibility and versatility to accommodate large-scale economic development opportunities. And there's not a lot of opportunities that this site will provide in the valley left. It's really, really a unique opportunity for the city. Is this working, Larry? Let's see here. It is not. Okay, there we go. So that's zoomed in, showing just along the. There you go. So here again is U111. We envision a nice landscape berm along U111, and these are the proposed major right-of-way corridors throughout the business park. If you had the chance to read over the ordinance, it includes all the land uses in the M1 professional office business research park, in addition to a list of other ancillary uses. That is intended to, like Chris said, accommodate a mix of industrial, and that's what we're seeing early on in talking with potential users, in addition to some retail, office, commercial, and some higher density residential uses. The meat and potatoes of the ordinance will be accompanied by a master development plan and a design guideline document that will be attached to, as is drafted, to any property that's zoned to this West Foothill zone. And that document will really guide the vision for what is built in this area. And that will primarily include landscaping guidelines, fencing guidelines, signage, wayfinding, architectural requirements, light direction. And so, and the point of that is to have the flexibility to accommodate a lot of different commercial land uses that would fill a business park, but at the same time have the constraints, the guiding design documents to ensure that it was built out with a cohesive, consistent look and feel. If you've been to, for example, if you drove into University of Utah Research Park, you have a sense of arrival. You know when you've entered, you know when you're leaving. And there's other business parks in this valley that have that consistent look and feel. And so that is really the intent of the design guidelines and the master development plan that are proposed in the ordinance. And then, a little more color, and then I'll go through this slide deck, is we've had the Governor's Office of Economic Development, along with the Economic Development Corporation of Utah, reach out with a handful of different businesses looking for a larger scale site. And those discussions with the Governor's Office and EDCU have really guided us in our work with Larry and Duncan in drafting this ordinance, to be able to accommodate some of those big opportunities. And so, what you see here on the slide deck is some examples of, if you go back, Larry, here's an example of some industrial use that we envision here. You can keep going. Some office that could be a whole host of, this area is currently planned for on your general plan map for, several hundred acres of research park. Nobody within the city has been able to give us any real guidance on what that is envisioned to be. I think that would present a challenge of the current University of Utah Research Park is about 300 acres. And that is adjacent to a major state university. So what we're proposing is to try to capture some of that demand, but in an ordinance that's a little more flexible than your, what would be research park. Here's some other examples of some office that could be in that zone. Going, and like Chris mentioned, with other major employers next door, and what will come into the business park, we do envision some ancillary uses that will be sustainable with a critical mass of daytime traffic, and that will be additive and support those businesses like hospitality, maybe some single tenant retail, et cetera. And then in addition to that, we do envision some higher density housing. If we want to, if we care about impact on transportation and air quality, et cetera, it makes a lot of sense to be able to provide some housing for the employers and their employees in the business park throughout. As it's drafted today, that would be capped at 10% of the overall site for that, what would potentially be a workforce housing or some housing to accommodate those that work within the business park. And like I mentioned, the more meaningful point of this zone is any property that's zoned to this West Foothill zone would be required to provide and would be accompanied by design guidelines defining these elements. And in looking at some of the research, the business parks that we want to mimic, those are the parks that have really done a great job of putting covenants in place that provide the flexibility for uses, but that ensure that you're going to have quality landscaping, signage, et cetera. Here's an example of a berm along Bangerter and West Valley that we thought was a good example of the landscape buffer we envision along U-111. There, you can keep going, Larry. We envision, that major corridor running at about, I think it's 96th, into the business park to have attractive landscaping that is controlled and maintained by the HOA. Here's some other visioning examples of, landscaping in the entry of an office building site or industrial site within the park. We do envision a great pedestrian connectivity throughout the business park from land use to land use. So we envision a network of trails and then placemaking within those different uses within the industrial and office and retail. And then again, in the design guidelines, some very specific guidance on signage that is throughout the park and then outside the buildings.
So if you have any questions for Ivory, I'll take over from after this. Yeah.
One more? Well, it's the one that had the list.
Is it 10% multifamily?
Just keep going forward.
Had some text on it.
There you go.
And so, as Brian said, so it's almost 600 acres, so 10% of that potentially could be multifamily housing. The reason it's multifamily is it's is targeted, as Brian said, as workforce housing. Nobody's proposing, large lot, single family in this business park. It's going to be a job creation center. And so with that in mind, it's got some fairly high densities for West Jordan, but the minimum is 30 and the maximum is 60. But it will be within that business park type setting. And the hope is, like I said, the majority of the people will work in close proximity. And the amenities will be, for those people living there, will be similar to what's already contained in the PC ordinance. In fact, it was almost a direct copy. And one thing I want to say about this, let me go back. You go to Lake Park, is this Lake Park Center in West Valley?
It is, yeah.
And it has a lot of trees, but it also has a lot of sod. But they do have a lot of water at Lake Park because I believe they're really low, high groundwater. The landscape plan for this development will be based on water conservation principles of Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District, because the last thing we want to do is build a big business park that needs its own 2 million gallon tank to take care of the landscaping. It's just not responsible development any longer. And so, I don't know, Brian, there may be sod somewhere and there may not,
Yeah, we, and I'm sure you all got a copy of earlier, or maybe late last fall, Jordan Valley put out a letter and a resolution from the board encouraging or preparing to adopt standards for indoor and outdoor water. Some of those standards outlined in the outdoor space really align with what we envision here. And they've coined and are still using that phrase local scape. There's the design guidelines that will accompany the zone will detail out what we envision there. There's really attractive ways to provide those landscape buffers and on-site landscaping within an office park and an office pad, and it doesn't have to be Kentucky bluegrass. And it can be done in a way that's very attractive, but yet is water-wise and conscious of water conservation. The Lake Park is a great example of attractive landscaping at the entry, consistent look and feel throughout the park as far as exterior materials on the buildings, as well as proximity to residential. That's, I would argue, one of the reasons that has been such a successful business park is because it had housing planned within and adjacent to it to accommodate labor-intensive users. And so, to answer your question, Larry, yeah, the details of that landscape vision would be in the design guidelines and would provide a sense of flexibility, but would encourage something more creative than what you see in typically an office park parking lot, or the strips of grass in the parking stalls. It would be a little more water-wise and a little more creative than that.
And so the nice thing about developing a ordinance like this is, our current light industrial zone is a light industrial zone. But there's really not a consistent look and feel between any of it. It's not a business park, which you see all over the United States, the look and feel. They have the same architecture, same road standards, and they really feel like a development you can be proud of because of the consistency of the development. And I've got an example, but Chris, did you want to say something real quick? Okay. And so my daughter lives she moved to Overland Park, Kansas, and in Kansas they've been doing this principle, this business park type development for, decades, I would say. Yeah, they even have a business park that they developed in a very large cave, and it's all inside this cave. And so they really develop it as a theme, but they've always incorporated all, the different amenities, and this one happens to be on the border of Overland Park and Lenexa, Kansas. As you can see, it's that's the surrounding. It goes to the what they call is a highway. They have a lot of highways in the Midwest as opposed to freeways. They have a lot of highways. They have freeways, but it's right next to a busy highway. So I envision this being the kind of the same location as along Bacchus Highway. You know, and so like I said, it's in Overland Park, Lenexa, Kansas. It's this park where the red is. If you turn the lights off, you might be able to see it a little better, but it's roughly 376 acres in area. And the mix of uses in there are industrial, warehousing, retail, housing, and office. And you can see where some of the office, for example, and the housing, it's an apartment style housing type thing, but it's in this business park. And then that's really, you know, light, but the retails tend to be on the hard corners, you know, and most of them are small grocery and eating establishments, food establishments. I didn't see a particular hotel in this one, but as you can see, it does have a rail spur running through the middle of it. And so that shows where the warehousing is largely. And it's a lot more. Big O Tires has a major warehouse distribution center in Lenexa, Kansas, and it happens to be in this park. And so, you know, it's just full of different types of warehousing uses and industrial. And the manufacturing uses or industrial are kind of a ribbon along that rail corridor, and they kind of go a little bit to the left also. So if you're thinking will this work? What does it look like? What will it turn out to be? It's something similar to what they do all over in Kansas. Now, they don't do very tall buildings there because they have the ability to spread out and just keep spreading out. And so that kind of fits with the feel of the countryside anyway. As you get out into the suburbs, they keep things lower. But they do have a consistent architectural theme. And so you really know you're in this business park. And so that's one example I can show you. And this does work rather than just segregating everything to industrial here. You have industrial here, but no, you can't have a Carl's Jr. there because it's not allowed in an industrial zone. Why that is, it doesn't make any sense. Because when I worked in South Salt Lake, the John Price Business Park had a lot of different mixes of uses. Now, it wasn't nearly as large as what Ivory's proposing, or the land Ivory's is proposing to develop, is about 40, 50 acres, but it has a major call center for Marriott hotels there, and some industrial uses, and the Census Bureau for the Utah office happen to go in there, but it also has places where people can eat if they work there. And it has a constant a consistent architectural theme, nice landscaping. So I'm excited about this ordinance because it will allow things to be done in a way that the city can be, you know, we can land with something we're proud of. And so, Chris.
Thank you. Mary, would you go to the very first slide with the map? And that, by the way, we're going to steal some of that. That's awesome. We've been thinking about some of the users in our market, like Research Park and Lake Park Corporate Center. We built all the housing on the west side of what is the Lake Park Corporate Center. It's called Highbury. Lake Park goes from Bangerter Highway at 40th West all the way to 5600 West. It's about 1,000 acre project, and there's about 200 acres rather of residential in that area, and then commercial along 5600. One of the real opportunities here is that we can look at this holistically and try to plan that area into something that's consistent. This area here has just been now, this was all done together, but it was done as an industrial park in the late 80s, early 90s. And it wasn't done to be, you know, an attractive place. There's great employers there, Dannon's there, Boeing went there. But we want it to look better than that. And this area here, you know, with the Boeing, with the Amazon, has just been piecemealed from the site planning of it to the infrastructure. The Amazon here, they had to get an easement for their off-site sewer to come out over here to make it work. We actually piggybacked on them, and we paid to upsize the sewer here like 4 months ago. Worked with Scannell, Seafried, to upsize the sewer so that we could provide some sewer access to the other side. So we were already thinking that way. They didn't have the water that they needed, so they're looping water from this tank to this tank so that they could make it work. So it's just been this, you know, duct tape and chicken wire approach to planning for the infrastructure and the uses in this area, and we want to take a much more holistic approach. We've been spending a lot of time and a lot of resources doing all of the infrastructure investigations here. Water, sewer, power, gas. The big unknown is water, because we don't know if there's going to be a big water user like a data center or a small water user like an Amazon. So what we're doing is we're looking at this holistically and saying, we need to just preserve the area in case we need to add some tanks. And then make sure that we're sizing our pipes appropriately just so that everything works. So that we're not piecemealing this together. But that's really the value proposition. Some of the real challenges, one is this diagonal New Bingham Highway through there. These industrial users, they don't like triangles. They like big squares and rectangles, and they like things flat.
That last one was a triangle.
What's that?
In Kansas, it was a triangle.
Well, it was.
I just kidding.
It was, and they had some, you know, some roads. It was also really flat.
Sure.
There's about 200 feet of fall from here to here. And these guys like flat for their big buildings. So we're talking about a lot of retaining. We're talking about designing those things up front so that when those economic development opportunities come to us, we can respond to them and we can know how to fit them in. We figured out how to maximize, you know, this triangle right here with bigger buildings transitioning down to smaller buildings. And that will work just fine because that diagonal is through there with a lot of infrastructure. But this presents a real opportunity to do something that will be a real credit to West Jordan. And it'll be a place that when these users come in and they do go to EDCU or they go to GoEd, they'll think of coming here first. They'll want to be here because we've thought of that. And that's the real reason why the Jones family entrusted us to be their development partners on this piece, is because we were looking at it holistically and trying to figure out ways to add value for the Jones family and add value for Ivory and add value for the city, because these kinds of opportunities are, you know, there aren't any really big 500-acre pieces unless you're over by the airport, and we don't want to be in the inland port. We want to be out here. We want to be with, you know, and do some things and have an opportunity to bring some of these jobs here. So.
Just one clarification. And when Chris says we've been working on the infrastructure and utility analysis, what that means is we've actually engaged your city's consultants. So Hanson Allen Luce, JUB, and Horrocks that consult on your long-range planning and your capital facilities plans. And so we've been working with your consultants and staff to understand the infrastructure and utility requirements that will be required. in talking with EDCU and GoEd, the very first questions we get are, is the land use in place and is the infrastructure there? Will it be there to accommodate these users? Because as you probably know, it's always a wait, hurry. And so when they pick a site, they want to move, and that's what this park will provide. It will secure flexibility on the land uses, and it will have a cohesive master plan to accommodate the infrastructure needs.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah. Hang out for a second. I know we're not hearing an application, but I'm sure we're gonna have questions that go both ways. At least I do.
Great.
First of all, I love this. I think this is a great, brilliant idea to do this. But I have some specific questions that are gonna, like I said, go back and forth. So I'm gonna go and take my turn and then I'll let you guys jump in. First of all, on building heights, regardless of the use, are we gonna have restrictions on this? Can it go, I mean, how high are we gonna allow buildings to go out here? Is it,
As high as they want.
okay. The second one, on the residential, I'm counting a potential of 3,600 units. That's the maximum count, right? What's the likelihood we're getting to 3,600 units? And it's all multifamily, right? We're not doing single-family homes or anything
All
like that.
multifamily, yeah.
What's the likelihood we're getting to 3,600?
Moderate to high likelihood.
Okay. Is it all gonna be contained in like one specific area, spread throughout the whole 600 acres?
No, we think it develops out as the park develops out. And let me, if I can just give you an
Yeah,
example.
please do.
Along New Bingham Highway right here, there's a gravel pit that's right there. You probably never seen it, unless you drive there and you could buy rock and stuff. They've dug a really deep hole, and industrial guys don't like that. And in fact, it's so low, it's gonna be hard to use that. So we thought, well, maybe some housing would go there. It's behind some berms, it's down low, and maybe some of that, wants to be over here because we think there probably is some commercial at the hard corners, to use Larry's example. So there might be some there might be some there. We're gonna see how it develops out.
Okay. Are we talking rental units?
Yes.
All rental, no occupied, owner occupied?
No.
Okay. This is a big conversation point that we had. This may be more, well, it's for both. Everybody talks about it, and I went to the Olympia Hills conversation last week, and the big buzzword right now is, live, play, work, right? And we all want to accommodate that. My question is, are we going to have affordable units for the people who are going to be working in these facilities? You guys have, without disclosing who you're talking to, what's the average pay of the employee that is working in these facilities that you're being approached by? Are they going to be able to afford an apartment that pays $1,500, $1,600 a month? Realistically, I mean, are we providing realistic opportunities, or are we just saying, we're gonna go live, play, work because it's gonna solve traffic issues? That's a concern that I have, because I don't believe that Olympia Hills has actually thought about that. And it's not you guys, I get that, right? But they talked a lot about that last week, and I just don't believe that they've really truly considered the impact of what live, play, work means.
Part of the calculation is also proximity, how far people are traveling. We ought to be thinking about that when we're thinking about housing costs. If you work downtown and you live in Eagle Mountain, you're really adding that travel time and your automobile expenses into your housing costs, because you're making a housing choice away from your employer. So living closer does help accommodate that. We propose this as workforce housing because we do believe that the air quality and the traffic can be mitigated, not completely, but it can help to mitigate it if people have an opportunity to live closer. If they're not driving to Magna to live, or to Eagle Mountain, then we have less congestion on the road. And so we're trying to think of this in a holistic way, and it is our intent to provide affordable opportunities so the people that work here can afford to live here.
And I get that, I think that's great. I'm just making sure, just for my own curiosity, and I know we're gonna hear from you guys several times in the next coming years, right? This is the first time, and it's not even technically you just doing this. I just wanna make sure that we're gonna have affordable housing so that if I'm working there, I'm still going to need a car, we're still a drivable city, right? Or a driving city, maybe not drivable, cause that's debatable, but we are a driving city, right? And so we're still gonna have a car. So I'm just trying to make sure that we're gonna be able to accommodate those expenses. Another question for you, because we're gonna get into this next, is this going to be an exception to cap and grade?
Yes.
Okay.
It's in the ordinance that it's.
Okay, I
exception
haven't
to
read through
cap
the
and
whole thing,
grade.
it's really long and I didn't have that much time. The last question I have, at least for now, on the signage, and I was trying to scroll through this, are we going to give this its own specific signage, or are we going to apply the current citywide standards to this
No,
area?
it'll be specific, it'll be what they put in their development plan and architectural guidelines. So it'll all be consistent. You know, I look at it as like a large campus where they all have consistent signage, similar to like Jordan Landy does, all the signing is consistent. And so, you know, if they land on monument signs, then everyone will have monument signs. It won't be a billboard here and then a monument sign. And so, yeah, and so that's the nice thing about pre-planning these things, these large master plan developments. You can look at really that kind of stuff at the beginning, where in the traditional Euclidean zoning, we don't look at any of that. We try to write ordinances that kind of fit, maybe they do, maybe they don't. You try to, you know, it's like the wall plane projection thing we had a few months back. Do you remember that? Where it was, the ordinance required it, but it made no sense for it to go there. And so this will be much more planned out development than that at the beginning. And that's what we, on these large developments, that's what we need to be doing. Now, as far as the wages, you know, Amazon, I think they advertise they start at $15 to $18 an hour, somewhere in that range. In the business part, I anticipate that the workers will be at a little higher skill level. So I think they will be able to afford the housing in there. And I'm not saying that for everyone. If a Maverick ends up on the corner, of course not, because that's the starter retail now. But I think that it will create opportunities for people to live there if they choose to. And, you know, with 3,600 people choosing to live there, that will alleviate some of the congestion and emissions and, you know, just all kinds of issues that are created by a lot of commuter traffic, so.
Okay, last question. Can we move on this fast enough so that we could have a chance for you guys to steal Utah State from the other guys? Because that seems like a great research hub for me, to me anyway.
We're
Just a suggestion as you
yeah.
guys
Hey,
think about
we're
this.
in. On that point, let me just one thing that I had forgotten to mention is we did have a meeting at the Wasatch Front Regional Council, and they facilitated a meeting with the city, themselves, UDOT, and UTA about really this whole area. Because as you know, we're going to be coming back for our Jones Ranch, which is about 600 acres right here. And we really wanted to talk and have them start thinking from today about U-111 and about bus rapid transit and how do we get it out here. It's going to go on 5600 West. It was going to go in Mountain View, now it's going to go further east. How do we get some spurs out to this area, particularly if we're going to have a job center that's this substantial? And so I thought those were really productive. It was a good introduction. UTA and UDOT were like, we had no idea this was even going on. Kind of let us go back and have those conversations. So one of the solutions to this is also, let's make sure that we get we're planning in the bus service out here. We challenged UDOT to come back and tell us, are you sure this is as wide as you really need on U-111? Like, are you sure you don't need more? Because that's not going to be a good thing for anybody. So we really did challenge, and they said, you know, Scott, they were like, we better go back and crunch our numbers. So we really are trying to take a holistic approach to the whole planning of this area, traffic being one of those things. We can't make UDOT build Mountain View Corridor, but we can sure as heck make sure they do the corridor preservation right up front.
one other question, that just because of the meeting you had, I thought 5,600 had hung, you know, it stopped being a BRT option. Is that back on the table? 'Cause I thought that was not going to happen. That has nothing to do with you guys, just out of curiosity.
The current plan that they indicated at the meeting that Mr. Gonzalez was talking about, that is enhanced bus service, not BRT. It's signal prioritization. It's basically a bus route at this point.
Okay.
So, but just to add on to what Chris was saying, right now, UDOT's corridor plan for Backus Highway U-111 is a 5-lane arterial, and I've gone on record there at other meetings. We have the Southwest Mayor's Visioning plan that's going on right now. We keep beating that drum that a 5-lane arterial is not going to have the capacity. Luckily, we have a lot of right-of-way already in this corridor. It varies between 125 to 140 feet, depending on where you're on the corridor. But we need to have a consistent plan, and so we keep raising that issue with UDOT, and hopefully they'll make an amendment.
Commissioner Hatch.
Thank you. Just for the record, I would like to disclose that I'm an employee of Ivory Foundation through the Ivory Employee Leasing. I just had, UTA was my question. I mean, I think it's great to build this master plan park, but if people won't all work and live there, we want people to come into the city. So I think it's very important that we provide a way for them to get into the city and to get in here to work. I think it's just a remarkable plan. I wish we had done it in other areas. I think it'll be distinctive and set us apart, so I'm in favor.
Commissioner Thomas.
A couple questions, and one was already answered about the cap and grade. But two, on the 10% high-density housing or multiple housing and stuff, is your intent to, or is it zoned so that commercial has to go first before we can start building the residential? Or are you gonna start doing the residential and then try to backfill it? Because I've seen where that doesn't necessarily work in a positive way. So maybe staff can answer that, or?
The intent of the ordinance isn't to guide how development starts or ends. It really has, what this ordinance has is a great amount of flexibility so that people that want to develop commercial or office there or industrial, they can do it in more of a fluid manner rather than going through a rigid process. You know, if it gets to be, so Amazon's 600 to 1,000 employees, 1,000 at Christmas time. You know, Chris said they've got 3 people that are looking at it. Say they have another 500 to 1,000 employees, all those. I mean, I cannot believe there's a retailer on the face of the earth who would ignore that and say, oh, you can go 6 miles down the road to our store there, because that's just not going to happen. You know, there'll be gas stations, that type of thing, restaurants. So I think that the commercial will follow rapidly the people that are working there, because you see it all over Salt Lake City around these industrial parks. You end up with small retail that services the industrial parks and that type of thing. You know, the one thing we don't want in this is data centers, because after construction over, you have a 300,000 square foot building with 30 employees, you know, and that doesn't.
And they use all your water.
Yeah, use all your water and use a big chunk of your land, so no, there's really no plan on, you know, how this develops out. So it's going to be a very fluid process, though, because I believe it'll have enough, well, it will, you know, I think it'll just develop as it develops. So we're not trying to guide that, no, you can't have any housing there. I don't know if Ivory's planning on building apartments first. I don't know. I don't think that would be wise. I think they'd want to get a few businesses in there first before that goes.
That's what I'd like to see. I just wanted to see if there was
I think this will run differently than what we've seen other plans, right? It doesn't make sense to build residential first.
We have 600 acres to the north. We're planning on focusing our efforts on the on that, on the Jones Ranch from a residential standpoint. The timing of whatever industrial comes here is whatever that is. It's going to depend on who those users are and who's being recruited to come in, who are they working with to expand their facilities here. One of the real benefits to having residential that is either interior or proximate is that you don't lose the whole area at night. You don't have just a huge daytime population and then a really large, and then it's empty. I mean, I used the International Center to say, you know, they've got hospitality, and we think that's really wise to have that in there. But they don't have any housing. Have you ever been there on a Saturday? It's no one's there. There's literally one gas station in the middle of that 1,000 acres. So if we really think that we can attract some commercial, we're going to put some rooftops next to it. And we think that hard corner on the north side is really a great place to put it. And it would make sense to do something there and to put some housing around it so that there's a population that's there all the time to support it. It'll make it more successful.
How many access points off of Bacchus are we anticipating going in here? I mean, obviously New Bingham.
Not a lot.
I mean, is UDOT going to allow a lot of access off of?
Yeah. Do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, in the discussions we've had, we do envision on the north end, what would be 94 south, and then depending on what happens with New Bingham, if that is vacated, it would be at about 96th or 98th, and then down Old Bingham would be the three primary entrances into the park.
I can see three. We're not looking at a bunch of others.
No,
Okay.
you're not, I mean, and they'll limit that by state statute, but for visioning purposes, we do envision a major entrance there at about 98th. There will be an entrance on the north and south side at Old Bingham. I think, Commissioner Thomas, to respond to your question, because it's a great question, important context to this plan or what we're envisioning here, this is a partnership with the Jones family. And so what that means is the Jones family is in no rush to sell the land. They don't need to sell it. They are looking to create something special and capture value over time. Why that's important to note is it presents a real unique opportunity for the city, because there's not a developer stepping in and buying a huge chunk of land and there's a race to get the money back. We can be patient and do something really creative. And so by getting this land use in place and then putting covenants in place that guide the landscaping, the signage, the architecture, it's not about, what happens there very first. We've got a lot of demand for big, employers, are the letters of intent and offers we've received up to this point. But it's, the property of the Jones family is more concerned about what's going to be happening in this park in 5 to 10 to 15 years. And that really presents an opportunity to do something creative, not rush, have a comprehensive plan in place. And so that's the vision, that's the plan.
Any other questions? Okay, well, let's do a public hearing so we can have a conversation about this and make a motion on it. All right, we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing for this. If anybody would like to come forward and share your thoughts about this text amendment, please come forward now. And seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, bring this back to the Planning Commission for further discussion. Commissioner England.
I love this. I love the flexibility it provides and allows, and I think it's something special. So with that, unless anybody's got anything else, I'll make a motion.
Please do.
All right.
I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Shelton.
On New Bingham Highway, it wasn't clear to me if the plan is to cut that off at Bacchus Highway or to allow it to continue Perhaps I should have brought this up before when,
Well,
This is a great time for it.
we can't cut it off. It's got to go through a process. You know, there are utilities running down that corridor anyway, so that has to be accounted for. It's a work in progress, you know, so there's studies to be done, what's the best way to take it. And so it won't automatically be cut off with any zone change or any site plan. It's still gotta be worked through, and there's a lot of steps to that, and so.
Speaking of next steps, that's a great point. The next step with the planning commission's recommendations, we're gonna take this forward to the city council. They have the authority to change the transportation master plan and do some realignments. That'll be part of the discussion in concert with this text amendment. I hope to have that very soon. But Larry's right. The recommendation of this code amendment has no bearing on this concept that you see.
I got one quick question.
Commissioner Thomas.
And this is maybe for staff. Is there any talk about doing a commissioning of a study with transportation in specifically for this area? As far as traffic, utilities, all of those.
Absolutely. If the council adopts this new West Foothill zone, the Ivory will have to bring back a development plan and development agreement, and part of that plan is studying those points of infrastructure that you just brought up.
Is it like, we talked about a little bit about the water, and that's gonna be a big issue too, is the water.
Absolutely. We'll have to talk about when the infrastructure goes in, who pays for what, the different financing tools now available because of the new the new law, the PID. So, and I don't even know if you're exploring that. So, but there's a lot of options, a lot of things to discuss and to roll into that agreement and plan, which the commission will see the development plan as it moves forward.
I think that's all you know.
So maybe
Commissioner Hatch.
maybe one thought too,
Mr.
just from a legal perspective, that what you're voting on tonight, obviously, is what you're making a recommendation to the council on is just the 7.5 pages of this text, which we feel that or staff feels that the primary applicability would be to this potential development, but it is technically applicable to other potential areas. So this is your opportunity. If there's anything in here that you have a question on, this would be the time to focus. There is on that. This particular ordinance does have a 500-acre minimum, which of course this proposed development would comply with.
So
That leads to my question, sorry, Chair.
Go ahead,
No,
go ahead.
no.
You may be going the same way I am.
I just wondered how much other area there is this could apply to, the zone. I mean, what's left that meets this criteria?
Well, also in that ordinance, the city council can allow parcels to be incorporated into a larger development, or they could consider a smaller development if they feel like it meets the intent of the ordinance. Now, how many 500-acre pieces of property are left? Not many. I'll tell you that, unless we annex Kennecott property and they choose to develop, but that's, Chris spoke about the 200 feet of fall. It gets a little more extreme up there, but they do have a big industrial crusher up on the hillside, so someday it could,
Everything that's right here though, going up, this is all Jones?
Two families, yeah.
But I mean, this is not Kennecott land right here, right?
No.
Everything this way is Kennecott?
Yeah, it literally is like right along the rail line that's there. And if you come up into this area, the rail line's there, and there's a hard fence with a razor wire, and they're keeping folks out. This property's owned by the Merlin Jones family. That was Lamar's brother, who's still alive. And you might remember Mike Jones, who comes to a lot of these meetings, his son. And then this is this 600 acres. We actually part of the gravel pit, about 85 acres, takes it up to just under 600 acres now on the Jones Ranch. It started with just 287. So the Merlin Jones family, they have some other over here. This and this is really what's left of the Lamar Jones family area, and combined it's around 1,100 acres total, all residential on the north and this industrial on the south.
So, I mean, we've talked about this, we're gonna do this soon, I assume. This stuff by Merlin, is this stuff for sale? Is this something you guys are actively looking at?
It's not for sale.
It's not for sale, so there's not a likelihood that this part right here could eventually be annexed into this?
Yeah, we're planning for the road connections. Stokesley Drive actually comes down through here. It comes past High Point. You'll see it when we bring the Jones Ranch. And then this is the connection of Stokesley, and it is intended to be a minor collector so that we're not pushing all the traffic onto U-111. We're getting some traffic on the bench.
Okay. It's all you now.
My turn.
Commissioner England.
All right. Based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council amending the 2009 City Code, adding Article K West Foothill District to Title 13, Chapter 6.
Commissioner Hatch.
I have to second this one. I'll second that.
Commissioner Allen.
Just one quick question on the 13-6K-2, I.2, the section on extension. Perhaps this is just within the adequate justification portion of it. But I would like to see that say something to the effect of adequate justification and plans to reasonably move forward within the 1 year of the justification.
Yeah, can you point out the page on that, just so that those who made the motion can see it?
I don't
And
have
me,
it.
because I
Top
can't
of
find it
page
available.
3, right?
Now, the section is labeled extension.
And you want it to read what?
It says right now adequate justification. I'd like to see that say, and plans to reasonably begin construction within the extension.
Commissioner England, what do you think?
I'm fine with that.
Commissioner Hatch?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, we have an amended motion from Commissioner England, seconded by Commissioner Hatch. Any other discussion?
So just to clarify, you just want to insert those additional words right after the words provides adequate justification and before the words for such an extension.
Yes, sir.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Excellent, we're excited. I'm excited anyway.
Thank you for your time tonight. We appreciate it.
We'll be hearing from you a lot soon, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, you will.
Okay, we'll see you. Mr. Langford, I'm assuming this is all you, right? Or Larry, are you giving us? This has been you every year. This is my last one, and it's been you all the time, so.
I know that this is the cherry on top of the sundae that you've all been waiting for tonight, so. So it's the current status of the cap and grade, and of course for people, to remind the planning commission, the ordinance was passed that, requires 77% single family and 23% multifamily. Existing invested residential units. So currently in the city, single family detached, there's 2668 or 71% of the city, or 71% of the residential, and multifamily is 9100, and that's 24% of the city. The remaining vested multifamily units, and as you recall, there was a number of large projects that came in at one time that necessitated the need for the cap and grade. For instance, the View, Gladstone, a station at Gardner Mill, and everything at the Jordan Valley TOD. Now, much of the remainder of the vested units are at the Jordan Valley TOD, because Gardner Village is, or Station Gardner Mills on its last construct, so is the View, and Gladstone has won a whole other phase, so they'll be around for a while. So the total dwelling count in the city is 37,714. And I already went over this. And so if the additional multifamily units are built, then the total multifamily stock increases from 9,100 to just a little over 11,000. So future potential trends. So in consideration of the multifamily units that have been grandfathered and the current rate of single-family development, West Jordan, what was it, Scott, at the heyday, a little over a couple of years where there were 1,000 units and 800 units. We've been pretty much averaging right in the 300 to mid-300 single-family units a year. I don't expect that to really bump up. I think it's a pretty consistent pace. So it'll take approximately 33 years for the desired ratios of 23% multifamily and 77% single family. And these are just some comparison. If only 200 single family units are built each year, it'll take 52 years, 334 years, 521 years. And this analysis just kind of went through what remaining, off the land use map and the zoning map, what remaining residential property is left. Now, some of that's farther to the north, but he has down here about 1,900 acres left. And so the interesting thing is that would be the average density of 5.34 units per acre. If that density was achieved on that acreage, then that would achieve the 23% to 77% listed in the cap and grade. And the interesting thing is these larger master plan developments are hovering around that range. They're a little less than that. And so it's interesting to me that I think when all is said and done, I think the city will land out pretty close to the goal of 23%, 77%. And with the Wood Ranch development, they're annexing a large portion of land for their development, but with that annexation, the city's made the promise to annex 7 or 800 single-family homes that have already been built. And so that could switch the percentages up some. And so that's my report for 2019. And if you'd like to view this on your own, it is on our website, so the public can get to this and look at it.
Anybody else want to talk about it more? Is there a meeting on Tuesday or Wednesday next week? On Wednesday, right? Okay. Any other business? That's it, 6 o'clock? Which room? Downstairs? Okay. Cool.
Motion to adjourn?
We're adjourned.